The single most repulsive quality in a human being is need. We are taught to be repulsed by it. In others, and in ourselves, smart, compassionate people will argue this is a brutal, unfair reality, while others insist it's a fundamental truth of social physics. Both sides have a point, and the consequences of their views shape every interaction you have. Where do you stand? By the end of this, you might see the world through a different lens. The first argument is biological. It's cold, calculating, and deeply embedded in our evolutionary hardware. Our brains are sophisticated risk assessment machines. When we encounter another person, we are subconsciously running a diagnostic. Are they a resource or a drain? A partner or a project? A threat or an opportunity? In this ancient calculus, desperation is a red flag. It signals a lack of resources, stability, or social support. A person who desperately needs this job, this relationship, this deal, is broadcasting a single powerful message: I have no other options. To the primitive part of our brain, this translates to high risk. They might be a burden. They might be unstable. Their lack of alternatives suggests that other people who have already vetted them have passed. We are wired to trust social proof. If no one else wants to invest, why should we? Think of it like choosing a restaurant on a street full of them. The one with a long line signals quality. The empty one signals a problem. We use the same shortcut for people. A person with options, other job offers, other romantic interests, other sources of funding, is the restaurant with a line out the door. Their optionality is a form of social proof. It says, others have vetted me and found value. We feel safer choosing them. It's a survival calculator running silently in the background. That sounds convincing. Almost. Too convincing. But there's a problem with this purely biological view. It assumes our calculator is accurate. Critics argue that in the modern world, this ancient wiring is a profound bug, a cognitive bias that makes us strategically foolish and morally blind. We mistake the proxy for the reality. Having options is a proxy for value. It is a signal, it is a symbol. But it can be a deeply misleading one. A brilliant founder might have zero funding options simply because their idea is too radical for a risk-averse market. An exceptional person might be single because they just moved to a new city, or just left a long-term relationship, or have standards that filter out low-quality partners. A highly skilled professional may be desperate for a job because their entire industry was just disrupted. Their lack of options has nothing to do with their intrinsic worth, talent, or character. It's a product of circumstance. By overweighting optionality, we screen out hidden gems. We become allergic to anyone who is at a low point, forgetting that life is cyclical. We chase the person who is already successful, popular, and validated, and in doing so, we compete in the most crowded markets. The real alpha is finding value where others see none. It's investing in the brilliant but unfunded founder. It's recognizing the quality in the person who is currently alone. It's hiring the candidate who is down on their luck, but has a core of steel. This perspective argues that our instinct to flee meatiness is a failure of imagination. We dismiss the rough diamond because it's still in the ground. And yet, the other side argues this misses a critical piece of the puzzle. The person with options has a real tangible advantage that we can't simply ignore. That advantage is leverage. In any negotiation, the person with the most power is the one who is most willing to walk away from the table. This is called your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or BATNA. A strong BATNA changes everything. A person with options has a strong BATNA by definition. The job candidate, with 3 other offers, negotiates for salary and title with a calmness that the desperate candidate cannot fake. The person who is genuinely happy being single evaluates a potential partner with a clarity that someone terrified of being alone can never achieve. Their confidence is authentic. It's earned. It comes from a place of security. When we treat them differently, we are responding to this structural power. Their posture is different. Their questions are different. They lean back. The person without options leans in. They are vetting you as much as you are vetting them. This shifts the entire frame of the interaction from one of supplication to one of collaboration. You are equals, exploring the potential fit. With a needy person, the frame is hierarchical. They are below you, asking for something. You hold all the power. And power dynamics make us behave differently. We respect the person who doesn't need us because we have to. They have the power to choose. We subconsciously know that to win them over, we must offer our best. For the person who has no choice, we know we can offer less. We can delay our response. We can impose stricter terms. Their lack of options gives us permission to devalue them. This is the brutal logic of the market, applied to human relationships. That logic sounds airtight. It explains why this behavior is so persistent. But it also fuels a vicious cycle. This leads to the darkest part of the phenomenon, the self-fulfilling prophecy. Sociologists call it the Matthew effect, from a biblical verse, "To those who have, more shall be given." When we perceive someone has options, we give them even more. The popular student gets invited to more parties, making them more popular. The startup that secures one top-tier investor finds its inbox flooded with offers from others, a process called signaling. The author who gets one bestseller finds it easier to get their next book deal. Opportunity is a magnet for more opportunity. Our deference to optionality isn't just a passive observation, it is an active force that shapes reality. We create a positive feedback loop for the haves and a negative one for the have-nots. Imagine two identical people. One, through sheer luck, gets an early break. They get the good job, the attractive partner, the first round of funding. Suddenly, they are perceived as having options. They walk with more confidence. Doors open, people return their calls. They are treated with a higher level of respect and deference. Their initial luck is compounded by the system itself. The other person, with the exact same talent and character, misses that first lucky break. They are perceived as having no options. They are treated with suspicion. Doors close, their emails go unanswered, they begin to internalize this feedback. Their confidence wavers, their posture changes. They start to project the very neediness that the world is repulsed by. The system actively creates the inequality it claims to be merely observing. The initial gap in luck becomes a chasm of status and opportunity, and that feels deeply, fundamentally unfair. But there's one final, uncomfortable layer to this. What if the most important variable is the internal state? What if we are reacting less to the external reality of someone's options and more to the energy they project? The person who meets the outcome is tense, they are calculating. They are trying to be the person they think you want them to be. Their focus is on closing the deal. This creates a subtle but palpable energetic friction. It feels like they are trying to get something from you. The person with options is relaxed. They are authentic. They are willing to let the chips fall where they may. Their focus is on discovering if there is a mutual fit. The interaction feels open, exploratory, and light. It feels like you are creating something together. We are drawn to this state. It feels safe. It feels powerful. It feels free. Many philosophies are built on this insight. Stoicism, Buddhism, modern mindset coaching. They all teach a version of the same thing. Cultivate internal non-attachment to the outcome. Act as if you have options, even when you have none. Find your center of gravity within yourself so that no external event can topple you. If you can achieve this state, you project the same calm, powerful energy as the person who is genuinely swimming in alternatives. You change the physics of the room by changing your own internal state. But this is where the debate becomes most heated. Is it fair to ask someone whose rent is due, whose loneliness is crushing, whose business is about to fail, to simply cultivate non-attachment? It can sound like blaming the victim. It's telling a starving person to simply decide not to feel hungry. A brutal luxury of the privileged. So here is the question. Is our deference to optionality an ugly but necessary survival instinct we should accept as a law of nature? Or is it a fundamental bug in our social code, a system of bias we are morally obligated to fight and overwrite, in ourselves and in our institutions? Where do you draw the line between reading the room and rigging the game?